Still daybreak on the Rise News, time for the press preview. Let's begin with this day, our sister publication. Its leading headlines: President Buhari says, "I cannot be blackmailed over illicit enrichment, inexplicable wealth." Some writers there, he says he has no investment or property outside of Nigeria. Insists he has fulfilled his promise to tackle Boko Haram. And just below that, you have the APC presidential candidate Tinubu saying Edo train station attack shows Nigeria hasn't won war against insecurity. And that leading photo there, you have the presidential candidate of the PDP, Atiku Abubakar, in London on a consultative visit. More headlines: general election won't be postponed or cancelled. That's from the federal government trying to assure the citizens. Obi says Aso Rock not retirement home nor place to take turns. And above the nameplate of this day this morning, two headlines: CBN threatens to sanction banks over failure to load ATMs with new banknotes. Meanwhile, the federal government to increase surveillance at airports as COVID-19 surges in China and Europe.
The Punch newspaper, last lap, Tinubu campaign molds alliance with smaller parties. The APC is looking beyond the PDP, the NNPP, the Labour Party, and reaching out to parties to adopt the presidential candidate of the All Progressives Congress. And that's according to a presidential campaign member, Senator Akambi. Blackouts at 16 die in California flooding. Nigerian passport falls by 38 places in global ranking. Federal government shortlists 139 bidders for gas project. Gunmen attack NDLEA operatives, soldiers rescue Lagos Baron, and Labour Party's presidential candidate Peter Obi promises to negotiate with Biafran agitators.
Let's take a look at the nation this morning. Leading with the president, as Buhari says, explains what Nigerians stand to gain from Tinubu and Shettima. More headlines: elections will hold as planned. Federal government dismisses security threats to polls. Above the nameplate of the nation this morning, the Chief Justice of Nigeria saying judiciary won't be manipulated.
The Guardian newspaper is leading with the money. Naira redesign policy comes under pressure. And this one here says resident doctors write government on impending nationwide strike in the new year. The World Bank warns of fresh global recession and high poverty and high inflation as oil market uncertainty to distort budgetary assumptions.
And on the international scene, The Independent this morning, just one leading headline: 50,000. That's the record number of patients forced to wait 12 hours in A&E each week. Some writers there: massive jump from 30,000 in just 2 months, and 15,000 ambulance workers are set to go on strike today.
This is the Daily Express. Nurses' clock is ticking. Rishi, do a deal for Britain. The Church of England pledges £100 million to address slave trade wrongs.
And for the press preview, let's bring in Emmanuel Bello, who joins us now. Emmanuel, good morning. Thanks for being here with us. Let's take a look at this day newspaper and what President Buhari is saying. He's touting some of his accomplishments, saying that he cannot be blackmailed over illicit enrichment. And the yardstick that he uses to measure that is that he doesn't have any property outside of Nigeria. He also says he has fulfilled his task in tackling Boko Haram and insecurity to some level. And just under that story, you have the APC presidential candidate Tinubu saying that this attack at the Edo train station in Edo State is really just to show that Nigeria has not won the war on insecurity, Manuel.
Yeah, you can see that story is sounding almost like a rebuke to what the president, just said, almost like a retort from his own base, his own party, and from the presidential candidate of his own party, Tinubu, saying, look, we've not really gotten out of the woods as far as security is concerned. So if you're looking at this morning, you'll be looking at almost like these stories are juxtaposed against each other. You look at the story as if it's a reply for the to the president, and as the president has been talking about his, I mean, these are the dying days of his regime, a matter of days now, and he's talking about what he's done, what he's accomplished, and one of the things he likes to say, nothing really new in Nkechi, if you ask me, because he's said this in the past, he say, and almost like a broken record, saying that look, he's not enriched himself. I think Nigerians are not in doubt of the fact that he's not enriched himself. A lot of people think that he has been, he has been modest. Those some people compare. I don't think if you've seen that people compare him, his pictures in 2015 and how he's looking now. They say this government. Father Kukar said that we talked about it last year, that this government has been good to the president. He's looking, better looking, robust in his family. It's been the topic of a lot of discussion, even in the social medias and all of that, what this presidency has done to him. But the president is saying that, look, it hasn't, maybe that, but he didn't really enrich himself. You cannot, accuse him of being corrupt. But people like to say that, well, yeah, maybe it's true that you've not enriched yourself, but people under you have really perpetrated some of the worst, heinous crime around the issue of corruption. So it's not just about you as a person, it's about the country. I'm talking about the country. Tinubu is saying that we've not gotten security right. There are people that will agree with Tinubu. The only thing is that, well, they will say it's an own goal because it is your party. You are the leader of that party. And there are people who say this is why we are rejecting the party because it's not done enough. It's almost like Tinubu giving a verdict of no, some kind of vote of no confidence in that. Some people say it's just being very honest and be very sincere, but others will say, well, he should own up to that because this is his party, this is his base, this is the president he campaigned for, this is the man he brought, and he wants to continue, like you say, the legacy of that president. So it's a serious contradiction that I think the APC campaign has been dealing with.
Emmanuel, money talks. This headline: the central bank is threatening to sanction banks over failure to load their teller machines with new banknotes. Help us understand what's happening here, Emmanuel. There is a deadline for phasing out the old notes so that the new notes will eventually come in. What's this idea of holding the new notes? Is it supposed to, is there magic with keeping the new notes?
I've been talking to bankers, across the counter when I talk to them and I ask them what's going on, and they just throw up their hands also in despair, like they don't know what's going on. And you have that contradiction is what these stories are talking about. Nobody seems to know where the new notes are. The Guardian is even putting figures on it. It's saying Lagos, for instance, the Guardian newspaper, Nigerian Guardian, is saying that 27% of Lagosians have not even seen the new notes up to this moment. So those are some of the crises around this policy, and that's why a lot of people last year were worried about the timing. They were worried about the buy-in. They were worried about the fact that there isn't enough education or a citizen appreciation of the situation, and that's why some people at civil society legislative and were asking for some kind of extension of timing, that it was too sudden. But we know from the start that the CBN seemed to be adamant, and now the CBN is trying to deal with the problem that it caused, or it has started. It's saying, look, they are going to sanction banks that they should, because when you go to ATM, Kenneth, you're just going to have those old notes by 30th in a matter of 20 days now. So the money in your hands will not be able to get you anything because it's no longer there. I suspect that Nigerians will still trade with those money, will still do things with the money, but right now they are confronted with the crisis of a new policy that doesn't seem to be able to, the contradictions are just there. You can't access this money at the bank. It's only through the ATMs. So it's chaotic and it's confusing. And yes, and maybe that's why some papers are actually leading with that crisis. The CBN will have to do something in the next 20 days to be able to, ensure that the crisis and the kind of confusion this is going to cause in the polity is just not there.
Yes, Emmanuel, the CBN keeps insisting that it has new notes to go around all Nigerian citizens, but do you think it's a case of the banks actually don't have those new notes to dispense to the citizens?
It could be that, or it could be the thing that the CBN itself was seeking out to deal with in the first place, which is people hoarding money. Who knows whether this is being hoarded somewhere and then they're going to show up in some kind of black market and people trying to do some kind of, thing. It's here, and we know the kind of problems that are associated with all of this, whether it is in foreign currencies or even the new note. So I suspect that somewhere, somehow, the CBN will have to answer this kind of question, Nkechi. Where are the monies? Where are the notes? Nigerians can't find them. And then in a matter of days, the monies right now that I'm sure we all have in our wallets or in our pockets, we cease to be the legal tender. It will be actually criminalized to actually use those kind of monies in the next 20 days. So to stop that kind of situation, or to actually save us from the embarrassment and the confusion and the frustration, actually, that this way the CBN will have to do more than it's doing now to ensure that people have access to the new notes.
The elections must hold in February and March. That's what the federal government is saying, despite the insecurity across the country, Emmanuel.
Well, yesterday Nkechi and I were actually doing some back and forth here over the matter. She's saying, well, you see, INEC has to be very realistic because of the security crisis and all that. But I was saying that, look, INEC needs to be saying, reassuring us. But this latest reassurance didn't even come from INEC. It came from the federal government itself. Lai Mohammed speaking yesterday, saying that, look, elections will be postponed, they won't be cancelled. We're going to have those elections. So that's the federal government talking through the Minister of Information. We need to actually ask INEC what the fears are, how realistic these fears are, because an official of INEC will not just talk if they don't have this. And like Nkechi was saying yesterday, yes, those security problems are there, and the people will need to travel, people will need to move around, but this is happening when you are having all those kidnappings, those crises in the one in Lagos, and some of the serious issues of insecurity that you hear. How are we going to have elections in that kind of atmosphere? I think that's what INEC is reacting to. So beyond what the Minister of Information is saying, we need to hear from the security agencies to what measures are taken and how these elections are going to take place in an atmosphere that people will be able to really do them. But yes, those reassurances are needed. Nigerians need to know, because everybody is just tired and just waiting it out, just waiting for election day so they will go there and vote in a new proper government that would solve the kind of crisis. Nobody wants to hear things like cancellation or postponement. Not even a runoff. People just want to go there on first ballot, produce the next set of leaders for this country.
And also to be able to vote in a safe space. Let's take a look at one of the headlines on this day this morning. It's talking about COVID-19. The Minister of Health says the federal government is to increase surveillance at the airports amid all this surge of COVID-19 in China, in Europe. And you know that most countries now have imposed restrictions again on travelers coming directly from China. But Nigeria says it's not considering that yet. Emmanuel, what are your thoughts?
Well, yeah, it's again part of the sort of sloppiness that you have in policies, where we don't join the rest of the world to be proactive in dealing with certain crises. If countries that are based on science and do things properly are taking those kind of measures, we should be able to do things. And I find a little bit of contradiction there, because China itself is opening up. Is relaxing those kind of serious restriction around it, trying to open its market, open its economy. But of course, they are faced with those travel bans around the world. So I guess we'll have to do everything. Maybe this is not the worst of the COVID, maybe we've passed it, but whatever it is, we need to be more proactive. And I think the Federal Ministry of Health trying to do more surveillance around the airport is a welcome idea. And we just need to be very, very global in the way we approach the crisis of COVID.
Speaking of welcome ideas, Emmanuel, there's some headlines just coming from our business analyst, Bodil Shosami, and the Church of England is also in the Financial Times. The Church of England is setting aside £100 million to address wrongs relating to their role in transatlantic trade, slave trade.
Well, that's interesting because I mean there's a bit of history there, and the history of this, the history of the slave trade itself, and I think Africa is coming to grasp with some of those, some of those actions taken by people that feel that look they were wrong at the time, and trying to correct the wrongs of history, whether it is in the return of those artifacts that we do a lot of story around, or this kind of move, by the Church of England. It's a very interesting one. It's difficult to know whether those 400 years of slavery can just, whether anything can be done about it. But it's a show of goodwill to say that at least someone somewhere is worried about what's happened in the past, and they are taking some measure. Maybe it will bring a closure to one of the darkest period in the history of the world.
Thank you so much, Emmanuel Bello. That's the press preview. Let's hear your view on all the burning issues. Follow us on Twitter at Arise TV. You can also join today's conversation using the hashtag AriseDaybreak.